Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is day 165, Thursday, August the 17th, 2017. Thank you so much for tuning in. Appreciate all of you. Let's get right to it, shall we? Well. The Reverend Hillary Rotten Clinton. You just can't keep this witch out of the news. It appears that the Reverend Hillary Rotten Clinton's campaign spokesman from the 2016 campaign, Brian Fallon, is now comparing the D-Day soldiers to Antifa. Yeah, I'm not kidding you. I am not kidding you. Unbelievable. That's just absolutely unbelievable. Perhaps he's not familiar with this group, or maybe he is. I wonder if Brian Fallon would compare the folks that worked for the Hillary Rodham Clinton campaign, the Reverend Hillary Rotten Clinton, funded by George Soros. You know, the folks that they sent to Bernie Sanders rallies and to Trump rallies to instigate violence. Well, Mr. Fallon, these people were Antifa. Do you suggest, Mr. Fallon, that the soldiers who stormed the beaches of Normandy would have participated in being instigators of violence in a political campaign, particularly supporting a group of people who are communists? Somehow, I don't think that that would have happened, Mr. Fallon. Unfortunately, there aren't many World War II veterans left to defend their position, so I'll do a little bit of that for them, Mr. Fallon, you idiot. Yes. I just don't even know where to go with this. It's just, this stuff is just extraordinary. Absolutely extraordinary. Brian Fallon comparing Antifa to the men who stormed the beaches of Normandy on D-Day. The people that the Reverend Hillary Rotten Clinton surrounds herself with have got to be some of the lowest people on the planet, man. And some of the most ignorant people on the planet. This is just absolutely unbelievable, but it's being covered all over the place. You probably won't see it on the liberal media networks. Even they won't touch this dog. No one will touch it. Everybody knows that this one's bad. But that's what Mr. Fallon states. And you can see his article just about anywhere. Just Google it. Brian Fallon compares D-Day soldiers to Antifa. Absolutely unbelievable. Also, in some more Reverend Hillary Rotten Clinton news, it appears that Hillary Rotten Clinton's pastor has plagiarized passages for the Hillary Rodham Clinton devotional book. That's right, he's been found guilty of plagiarizing comments he did for Hillary's devotional book. Now, this guy's name, believe it or not, the Reverend Hillary Rotten Clinton's pastor, his name is Bill Shillady. Bill Shillady. Bill the Shill. Reverend Shill. Shilling for Hillary. Shilling for the Reverend Hillary Rotten Clinton. And he's plagiarizing other people's works in passages he is trying to pretend that he created for Hillary's devotional book. I didn't even know Hillary had a devotional book. It's just insanity, folks. It's just absolutely insanity. My goodness. The Reverend Hillary Rotten Clinton, she is the gift that keeps on giving. My goodness. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, yes. This doesn't surprise me at all. The mitwit Romney has now decided to pile on President Trump and join everyone else in the media, in the left wing, the anti-Trumpers in the Republican Congress, along with the neocons and all the rest. The nitwit is now piling on. He doesn't like Trump's response Well, you know, I dislike Nitwit. Mitwit, I think was my nickname for him. Mitwit. I disliked Mitwit so much during the campaign, during the election between him and Romney, or between him and Obama, that even though I knew that Ohio was a critical state and could be the state that could have delivered Obama the presidency, and I knew it was going to be a close vote here, I was simply not able to pull the handle for Mitwit. I wrote in Ron Paul, and of course Obama was reelected. But I sat back and thought about it, and I thought, you know, I just can't pull the handle for Mitwit. And of course Mitwit was spending a lot of his time prior to the vote talking about what he would be doing with Iran and Russia, starting a war basically, and I thought that that would probably be the, allowing Obama to win would probably be the lesser of two evils. Tough choice. Mitwit or Obama? Write in Ron Paul and hope for the best. That's what I did. I despise Mitwit. Also, a Texas Republican named Will Hurd, H-U-R-D, says Trump failed to ease concerns that Trump is sympathetic to white nationalists. Go ahead and put Maura, if you would, put Mr. Hurd, W-I-L-L, Will Hurd, H-U-R-D, on your list of swamp monsters. And let's make sure that we pay particular attention to Mr. Hurd in 2018. This man should not be reelected to the House of Representatives. If you are in his district, take note of this. He's not your friend. Certainly not a friend of the president. These guys are sissies. They have no backbone. I have every reason to believe Trump is not going to back down a single bit. And I believe that if we ever get to the bottom of this and get to the truth, Trump will be vindicated once again. Because everything he said is true. Bad folks on both sides trying to decide whether white nationalists or KKK or Antifa or Black Lives Matter, the radical elements funded by George Soros, to try to decide and decide, well, is this group worse than this group or whatever. The fact of the matter is, they're all bad nuts. Bad nuts in the barrel, bad apples in the bushel. Trying to decide the degrees of badness is fool's errand. Shouldn't even be happening. We should not even be spending this much time on this issue. These people make up they make up a fraction of 1% of the population. I'll be getting back to that later. A veterans group has now pulled Elizabeth Warren's invite to a rally that is scheduled on August the 26th. Warren is, of course, being challenged by a Republican named Jeff Deal. We need to check into Mr. Deal and find out what he's all about. He's certainly got to be better than Pocahontas. But it's just another one of these signs that I'm seeing that I keep pointing out to you. Keep in mind, this is in a Democratic district, and this particular veterans group, these are veterans. These are probably Democrats because this is a Democratic rally. Remember, there's a lot of Democrats in the country, many of whom are veterans. And they understand that Trump has just done a wonderful thing for veterans. They also don't like Elizabeth Warren. And this is just another indication of what I believe is coming for a lot of establishment politicians and a lot of two-faced politicians. And Elizabeth Warren is obviously not favored or liked very much by this veterans group because they've decided to resend her invitation. She's not welcome anymore to the rally. But her opponent, the Republican Jeff Deal, is still invited. How about that? So these largely Democratic veterans have just uninvited the Democrat, but they still welcome the Republican Jeff Deal to the rally. It's quite the telling sign, and I'm seeing this a lot. It's not just on the Democratic side, it's on the Republican side as well. I do believe 2018 and 2020 we're going to see some extraordinary things happen. Okay, coming to you from the Gateway Pundit. Virginia State Police now dispute bagman for the Clintons, Governor Terry McAuliffe, claims about safety concerns in Charlottesville. McAuliffe had stated after the event that the police were ill-equipped to handle the situation. You gotta be kidding me. Does he not have a YouTube account? Does he not know what YouTube is? Does he not have the ability to look at some video? Because, listen, Mr. Bagman for the Clintons, Terry McAuliffe, we can all see the video. The cops are in full riot gear. They have the helmets. They have the chest plates. They have the plastic knee and shin guards. They have the boots. They're armed with weapons, guns, mace, handcuffs, billy clubs, plastic ties. They've got it all. They were ready for combat, Mr. McAuliffe. Somebody obviously told them to stand down. They were certainly prepared. And now we have the Virginia State Police, because they're not fools. I mean, the Virginia State Police has got to be saying, what did he say? Oh my God, did he see the video? Our guys were armed to the teeth. They look like they're ready to go into full-blown combat. Look like they're ready to go to war. He makes it sound like they were standing out there in their skivvies or something. No, Mr. McAuliffe, bagman for the Clintons, your Virginia State Police were fully armed to the teeth, donning all of their riot gear, including shields and everything else that goes with it. They just simply didn't act, Mr. McAuliffe. Why didn't they act? And when they did act, what did they do? They herded one group right into the other. You need to explain that, Mr. McAuliffe. He also lied about something else. In this interview that he was doing, he also stated that they had learned that the alleged right-wing groups had stashed weapons all over the city prior to the rally. And then they had gone out at the time of the rally and gathered up all their weapons for the rally. Unfortunately, the Virginia State Police, in comments to that, says, nah, we don't know anything about weapons being stashed. We looked into some things like that, and none were found. It shouldn't surprise us that the bagman for the Clintons, Terry McAuliffe, is a liar. After all, his best friends, the Clintons, are huge liars. Most of their friends are huge liars. Shouldn't surprise any of us. I have a feeling that if there's a real investigation, we're going to find out that this was a setup, that it was no accident, that there was a stand-down order. The entire purpose was to instigate some kind of a violent situation which they could use to blame Trump and to use against Trump. But they didn't count on there being a death. But now that there has been a death, things are a little more serious. You know, Mr. McAuliffe is already under 2 FBI investigations regarding some irregularities in his campaign financing. He's also involved in the criminal case that's being looked into against the Mr. Andrew McCabe, the acting FBI director, and his wife's campaign. I believe she was running for the Senate or for Congress, one of the two. I think Congress. McAuliffe is also involved in that investigation. He's a very dirty, dirty player. I've been watching this guy for years. He's a scumbag. And now the Virginia State Police is disputing his comments. And I have the feeling there'll be a lot more disputes about Mr. McAuliffe's comments, as well as the police chief, the mayor, and the city manager. I believe when this whole thing shakes itself out, it's not going to be good for those folks. Assuming we get to the truth, which I don't know that we will, because we know that some of the instigators were in fact FBI informants or possibly intelligence operatives, God knows who. Democratic members of the House are to censor President Trump for not disarming or disavowing the KKK and Nazis, despite the fact that he's disavowed them time and time again. They also are angry at Trump for lashing out at Antifa, who these Democratic members of Congress believe are a peace group. Can you believe that? Apparently these people don't have a YouTube channel, or they don't view YouTube either, because a simple Google search or perusing a few YouTube videos at the past antics of Antifa, you would have absolutely no reasonable way in your mind that you could look at these people and say, yeah, that's a peace group. These people are highly violent. They're communist. They're interviewed many times on video to ask what they would like, what they believe, what they think. They're commies. Hardcore. Collectivist. Every damn one of them. And we've seen the violence that they've been involved in, including what I mentioned earlier. They were obviously involved in the instigating violence at Bernie Sanders rallies and at Trump rallies, paid for by George Soros, a close confidant of the Clintons. They're trying everything they can. They think they're playing a winning hand, but I got news for you, friends. You know, the news media and the inside the Beltway politicians, Democrats and Republicans both, they watch these liberal news broadcasts. They read the liberal papers, and they get sucked into this stuff and they believe it. What they don't realize is that they think that these liberal media outlets and others represent the thoughts and feelings of Americans across the country. They don't. This is where these people are making a huge mistake. They're listening to an echo chamber. It's just a few people in Washington, New York, and Los Angeles who work at these big networks. And they think that these people, the politicians, think that these people in the corporate media are representative of what people across the country think. And they are not. And they're going to find out that they've hitched their wagon to a bad horse. Just watch and see. Twitch McConnell decided to chime in during his month-long vacation. Why he needs a vacation, I don't know. He hasn't done anything to earn a vacation. But Twitch McConnell decided to chime in as well to criticize the president and to say that hate groups have no right to organize and demonstrate. And he was talking about in Kentucky. Well, I have news for you, Twitch. Yes, they do have every right in this world. As ugly as they are, they have a right to demonstrate. It's called the First Amendment. And Twitch, if you want to be proven incorrect and watch me be proven correct, just try to stop them. If you do, they will go to court with the ACLU defending them, and they will win in a unanimous decision. They will get that permit, and they will have their damn demonstration. As ugly as it may be, that's what it's all about, Mr. McConnell. But once again, you've stepped on it. Stepped in it, stepped on it. This guy is just a disaster. Not only is he incompetent and lazy, he should just never step up to a microphone. He should never make a statement. Every time something comes out of his mouth, he's exactly on the wrong side of the issue. It's just extraordinary. If you live in Kentucky, throw his ass out. You've got Rand Paul. He's a pretty good man. You can do a hell of a lot better than Twitch McConnell. I know he's not up for re-election this time around, but the next time he is, can his ass. He's a disgrace. Oh my goodness. You know, there's a congressman I like a lot. His name is Dana Rohrabacher. If Dana Rohrabacher is your congressman, he's one of the good guys. Make sure you support him and vote for him. I don't agree with him on all the issues. He's kind of a liberal, kind of moderate like Republican, but he's an honest man. And I like where he stands on a lot of moral positions, not necessarily on his economics and all that kind of stuff, but I like a lot of his moral positions. He's a good man. He's an honest man. Dana Rohrabacher has recently met with Julian Assange. He's meeting with Julian Assange because he knows that Assange can destroy the Russian narrative. He knows Julian Assange has the evidence. He knows that Julian Assange right now is in a difficult situation. He can't get here to the U.S., and he has to be very careful about how he goes about disclosing what he knows. But it appears now that Dana Rohrabacher has been in conference with Assange, and they have reached an agreement on something that Assange can do. And so now, I'm happy to report to you, keep your ears open over the next couple of weeks, because coming up is the following. Soon, Assange, right now, he is preparing a release. Assange is preparing a release where he will provide the documentation proving Russia did not hack the DNC. Now, imagine he's going to prepare this information, the documents, for Dana Rohrabacher, who's going to come back to the States with this in hand, and he's going to present it to the Congress and to the media. Do you think the media will cover that? Do you think the Congress will allow Mr. Rohrabacher to introduce it into some hearings? Do you think Mr. Mueller will want to take a look at that? Do you think that Christopher Wray will want to take a look at that? Do you think that the Pitbull, Mr. Gowdy, will want to have a look at that? So congratulations, Dana Rohrabacher. He's taking care of business. He's going to disprove the Russian narrative because he knows Assange has got the proof, and he's seeking it. And now we have word from Assange himself stating that he has been in consultation with Rohrabacher. They've reached an agreement, and he is now preparing the release documents that will show that the DNC was not hacked by the Russians. We'll see how that is covered. Also, getting back to the earlier issue of the Virginia riots, we are also now learning, and like I say, keep watching this story because Trump will be vindicated. As I stated in my video the other day, there's a lot more about this little protest. There's a lot more about this than what we've been told, and we're going to learn a lot more. It will seep out like everything else does, drip, 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 a little bit at a time. But a few months from now, when it's all been aired out, Trump will be vindicated, as will I and many of you commenters on my channel who know exactly what this is that we're looking at. But now we have some new information, and this kind of stuff is going to be seeping out every single day as this story takes center stage. Unfortunately, by the time the facts come out, there'll be a million other things that have come up, and this story will be completely forgotten. We'll make sure that it's not completely forgotten. We'll keep this story alive as long as the truth continues to come out. And here's one very interesting piece of information, which is exactly in line with what I told you I believed in the video I made right after this event went down. Here it is, folks. A company called Crowd Hire out of California. The Crowd Hire company recruited political activists for the Charlotte protest. Let me say that again. Crowd Hire recruited political activists for the Charlotte, Virginia protest. Charlottesville, Virginia protest. The protesters were paid $25 an hour plus parking and expenses. What do you want to bet? Just as I told you, many of those people on the left hanging out there on Market Street waiting for the police to herd the victims to them, bringing the lambs to the slaughter, Just as I told you, these were professionals. Professionals being paid. And if you follow the money, Mr. Sessions, follow the money, Mr. Sessions, you will find that it leads back to some very unsavory characters who are part of a larger plot to take down the president, to create civil unrest, and rip the country apart if they can do it. Fortunately, there's too many right-thinking people that won't let it happen. The Democrats are committing political suicide. They think that they're on a winning track to victory, which just shows you why they've lost over 1,000 seats in the last 3 years. These are literally the dumbest group of Democrats in the history of the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party used to have its shit together. There was a time, not too long ago, back up until, I guess, 94, prior to 94, when the Democrats had a huge, strong, powerful base. Southern Democrats, all them southern states that now all vote Republican, that used to be a huge Democratic voting bloc. And Democrats won many congressional elections and some presidential elections because of this big voting bloc they had down there in the South. And as you can see, that's all been slipping away. Well, based on what we're hearing in the past 24, 48 hours, it appears that the Democratic Party is now fully engaged, along with their friends in the leftist media, who clearly don't understand the thinking of most right-thinking people in the country. They're now engaged in a campaign of political suicide, electoral suicide. If the Republicans weren't so lame, lazy, incompetent, and corrupt, the Democratic Party would be vanished. There would be no Democrats elected. None. The only reason that they're even remotely viable is because of how incompetent and corrupt the Republican Congress is. But we now have Democrats and liberals and leftist groups and the Hollywood idiots calling for the removal of Confederate statues, statues of our founders who were slave owners, the removal or changing the name of streets that have been named after presidents who had slaves or Confederate military officers, parks that have been named after presidents who owned slaves or parks named after Confederate officers. And of course, one of their biggest pushes now is to eliminate the national anthem, because a couple of football players, two of which cannot even find a job in the NFL right now because they don't have what it takes. Kaepernick had one good season, one decent season. And the other guy, he was out of the league. Marshawn Lynch was out of the league for a couple of years. And I don't even know if Lynch is doing it as a protest. He just probably tired. No, Marshawn Lynch, but oh man, I'm just too tired to stand up. They want to remove the national anthem from all sporting events, any type of public events, because it's now offensive. Let me tell you what, Democrats. There's a lot of Democrats in the South who have a very close connection to their Confederate past. And by going out and calling for renaming streets, tearing down monuments, changing the names of parks, and all these sorts of things, it's suicide, because a lot of these Democrats in the South are not going to like this. They're not going to like this. Now, maybe the Democrats have looked at the last few elections and are saying, well, you know what, we've lost the South. You know, we've lost the South. The Republicans now own the South. We have no more hope of winning elections in the South. So, just screw it. Let's just go ahead and engage in this campaign. It's you know, there are still some Democrats that win elections in some left-leaning districts down in the South. The Republicans dominate the South pretty much, but you would think the Democrats would be working to get that back. They owned it for 40 years. No, they're not trying to get it back. They don't care. These are Democrats polluting electoral suicide, my friends. because there's a lot of these Southern Democrats. Two things the Southern Democrats you want to be very, very careful of, and most Democratic politicians understand this. You want to be very, very careful when you start talking about anti-gun legislation, and you want to be very careful when you start criticizing, calling out Confederate people who were involved in the Confederacy, whether it was the generals, the soldiers who fought on the Confederate side, the politicians of that era. Those Democrats down in the South, I mean, they kind of hold on to that. Not so much that they love that history so much, but it's their history. They don't want to see their history being erased, whether it's good or bad. And this idea that you're going to just tear down, you're talking about thousands of statues all over the South and all over the rest of the country. Are they going to tear down the Robert Byrd statue? And isn't it funny how the Clintons, Bill Clinton said his mentor was Robert Byrd, former head of the Ku Klux Klan in Virginia. In his eulogy, Bill Clinton talked about the fact that he was the head of the Ku Klux Klan. Did you ever hear the liberal media talking about the Clintons' association with Robert KKK Byrd? Did you? I never did. They loved Robert Byrd, former KKK Grand Poobah, mentor to the Clintons. Never heard a single peep out of them back then. I'm telling you, this is electoral suicide. I don't know what in the world the Democratic Party is thinking, man. They're just, and I'm glad they're doing it. I mean, if they want to, we can use all the help we can get because our Republicans are so bad. I'm telling you, if we can primary a lot of these horrible Republicans and get rid of them, we could literally make the Democratic Party irrelevant. We could just wipe them out. Absolutely. They'd hold a few blocks in the Northeast on the West Coast, and other than that, they wouldn't have any political power. Finally, the Bushes, 41 and 43, couldn't resist piling on over the weekend, stating that Trump must reject hatred. It's kind of funny that the Bushes would throw their name out there. I mean, if there's two guys who should never say a peep about right-wing nationalism or anything else, it should be the Bushes. And you know why? As is documented in this book, The Bush Family of Secrets by Russ Baker, clearly documented. Did you know that Prescott Bush had a very close association, not with just neo-Nazis, not with just right-wingers, but the actual Nazis? Prescott Bush, George W. Bush's grandpappy, his grandpappy, was the head of Hitler's bank in the United States. J. Edgar Hoover, FBI director, shut it down. But he had to force it to be shut down. Not only that, but we know that he actually charged Prescott Bush because he, while involved with several of his companies, provided materials to the Nazis even after a law was passed that would no longer permit American companies to deal with the Nazis, or trade with them, or anything else. But Prescott Bush and some companies he had interest in continued to do so, providing materials to the Nazis. He was charged, and he reached a plea agreement through his attorneys to plead guilty and pay a fine. Then he had some powerful members in the government bury those records for about 30 years. They finally became available on microfiche in the late 70s. And in Russ Baker's book, for which you can see this, let me show you, of the thickness of this book. Here's the book. You can see the thickness of the book. Here is the thickness of all the sources cited for all the claims made by Mr. Baker in the book, all backed, including a copy of the microfiche, giving us all the details about the charges filed against Prescott Bush, the plea deal, the fine he paid for collaborating with the Nazis. The Bushes have a long history of collaborating with the Nazis. They have hundreds of millions of dollars in the Bush family dynasty that came from wealth from the Nazis. Maybe someday I'll do an expose on the Bush's history with the Nazis. So Bush 41 and 43 should be the last people coming out to talk about Trump's association with right-wing nationalists, KKK, or anything else. Because they weren't just involved with some right-wingers, with some nationalists. They were doing business. Grandpappy Bush ran Hitler's bank. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. TowerGate, day 165, August 17th, 2017. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate all your comments. You all have a good evening. Thank you. Good night.